The spaceport was alive with motion. Ships of all shapes and sizes glided silently along magnetic tracks, docking and departing as if following a rhythm only they could hear. Aliens of every imaginable form moved among the crowds, their bright colors, unusual shapes, and soft hums of conversation creating a symphony of life that stretched across the vast terminal. Elior stepped off the transport with nothing but a small, worn satchel over his shoulder. His human frame seemed unremarkable among the diversity around him, yet there was a subtle energy about him that made some of the beings nearby pause for a moment. Elior's boots made soft, echoing sounds on the polished floor as he walked. He had been here before, though not in many years. The memories of the last visit were buried deep under layers of other experiences, other missions, and the quiet life he had built for himself since. Humans rarely made headlines in this part of the galaxy. They moved quietly, adapting, observing, surviving. Yet Elior had done something remarkable, something recorded only in fragments in hidden logs and whispers among those who remembered. He moved toward the central concourse, scanning the crowd with careful eyes. The air was thick with scents of exotic spices, mineral dust, and ozone from the hovering transports. A pair of small, four-limbed traders called out in an alien dialect, but Elior only nodded politely and continued. His attention was drawn more to movement than sound. He had learned to read intentions in posture, gestures, and the way beings interacted with one another. Then he saw the figure. Zirin stood just beyond the edge of the main walkway. Taller than most of the beings around, with luminous skin that shifted in color according to the surrounding light. Zirin's eyes, deep and reflective, met Elior's for a fraction of a second. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Elior felt a strange awareness, a prickling at the back of his mind, though he could not identify it. Zirin did not move forward. Instead, they observed, their bodies still yet alive with subtle currents of energy that only some species could sense. Zirin had a unique gift. They could sense history, the hidden paths that a being had walked. When Zirin looked at Elior, they did not see just a human navigating a busy hub. They saw flashes of a life lived in ways most could not imagine. A life of quiet heroism, of choices made under pressure, of dangers faced without recognition. Elior's past was hidden from most, intentionally erased from records to protect him and the worlds he had helped. Yet Zirin knew. The moment Elior entered the spaceport, Zirin recognized the story etched into him. Elior continued walking, his steps steady but deliberate. He was heading toward the administrative wing, a place where travelers often completed their paperwork and received directions to their destinations. The corridor widened, revealing rows of holographic signs hovering in mid-air, each one shifting to display relevant information to passers-by. He passed an alien merchant with translucent wings, who offered a small glowing cube in greeting. Elior shook his head and smiled politely, though there was a warmth in his expression that drew the merchant's attention. As he moved, he noticed small interactions around him that made him pause briefly. A young alien child was trying to reach a floating guide panel but could not quite reach it. Without thinking, Elior bent down and adjusted the panel so the child could access it easily. The child's eyes widened with delight, and a small melodic sound of thanks echoed before they ran off. Elior straightened, feeling a subtle satisfaction. Moments like this were ordinary to him, but to Zirin, every small action was part of a pattern that revealed the human's character. Further down the concourse, a maintenance drone hovered in a tight spiral, sparks flickering as it struggled to access a damaged panel. Elior approached and examined the drone's problem. Within seconds, using a combination of simple tools and quick thinking, he repaired the minor malfunction. Other travelers barely noticed, but the drone's systems immediately stabilized, resuming their normal function. Zirin's eyes glowed faintly with interest. Humans had a way of interacting with technology, with people, with situations that was unlike any other species. It was not about strength or firepower. It was about insight, creativity, and empathy. Elior finally reached the administrative wing. Lines of beings queued for their turn, some shifting forms, others humming softly, all waiting. He moved calmly through the line, keeping his satchel close. There were a few glances from those ahead and behind him, curious, almost reverent, though he paid them no mind. Humans were rare in this sector, and even rarer were humans who carried themselves with a quiet confidence that came not from arrogance, but from experience. Zirin continued to follow from a distance, careful not to draw attention. They could have approached, could have revealed their knowledge, but they chose to observe. The way Elior moved, the way he solved small problems, the way he engaged with the environment. It all spoke of someone who had lived a life of consequence, even if that life was meant to remain hidden. When it was his turn, Elior approached the holographic interface for registration. His hand hovered over the controls as he input his credentials. The interface flickered and hesitated, recognizing that Elior's identity was not fully documented in the hub's databases. A few subtle warnings blinked, but Elior's calm, measured actions bypassed them efficiently. He smiled softly at the system, a quiet acknowledgement that some things were meant to be handled carefully, with patience. The process complete, he stepped away. Zirin, still observing, felt a growing sense of admiration. Humans carried a resilience that was almost legendary among those who studied other species, yet so few had the chance to witness it firsthand. Elior embodied that resilience without knowing it. Every choice, every gesture, every careful step painted a picture of a being who had endured far more than others could imagine, and had come out not only intact but wiser and more capable. Elior made his way to a small waiting area near the docking bays. He found an empty bench and sat, placing his satchel beside him. Around him, life moved on. Aliens chattered, holographic displays changed, and ships prepared for departure. He took a deep breath, feeling the subtle hum of the spaceport around him. There was tension beneath the calm, a weight that humans often carried without revealing it. He had done things others could not, faced situations that had tested every fiber of his being, and yet he appeared like any other traveler. That was the way humans often worked, quietly, unnoticed, but capable of extraordinary things when the moment demanded it. Zirin stepped closer, though still keeping a respectful distance. They had observed enough to understand not just the events of Elior's life, but the essence of his character. The human carried kindness without expectation, courage without the need for applause, and an innate ability to solve problems creatively. It was a combination rare in any species, but particularly striking in humans. Zirin wondered if Elior even knew how remarkable he was, how the patterns of his hidden past had quietly shaped the lives of others around him. A soft vibration ran through the terminal. A nearby shuttle was preparing for departure. Elior stood and retrieved his satchel, moving toward the exit. Zirin followed, careful not to make their presence obvious. They did not need to speak, did not need to reveal the depth of what they knew. Observation was enough. The human steps were steady, their gaze purposeful, and yet there was a calm that suggested both caution and confidence. It was a rare balance. As Elior passed through the docking gates, he paused briefly to adjust the strap of his satchel. A group of merchants and travelers glanced at him, their expressions shifting in ways that humans might not notice, but Zirin did. There was respect, curiosity, and a subtle sense of recognition, as if some part of the galaxy instinctively understood that this human was different. Elior moved on without hesitation, unaware of the silent acknowledgement that followed him. Finally, Elior reached the transport that would take him to the outer ring of the hub. He paused at the threshold, looking back at the bustling terminal. the memory of a distant colony, a hidden mission, and choices made under pressure crossed his mind briefly. He did not dwell on them, but the flash of thought was enough to remind him of who he had been and who he still could be. Zirin lingered at the edge of the platform, watching as Elior boarded the shuttle. A gentle pulse of light emanated from their form, a subtle sign of intrigue and admiration. This human, so ordinary in appearance yet extraordinary in essence, had a past that was remarkable. And though the galaxy at large might not know it, Zirin did. The shuttle lifted smoothly into the air, gliding past layers of the terminal and out into the vastness of space. Elior sat quietly, looking out at the stars, unaware that he was not just traveling through space, but stepping into a story that would reveal more of who he truly was. Zirin remained behind, a silent guardian of the knowledge of human potential, already anticipating the next encounter. For the first time in many years, Elior felt a subtle stirring of anticipation. There was a sense that the universe, in its quiet way, was beginning to acknowledge what humans could do, even when no one else was watching. And somewhere nearby, an alien being knew all of his hidden history and was quietly inspired by it. The shuttle moved smoothly through the outer layers of the hub, gliding past suspended walkways and clusters of docking stations. Elior sat near a window, watching the lights of distant ships blink like fireflies against the dark canvas of space. He had always been fascinated by the quiet hum of activity in these transit zones, the way life unfolded in patterns both chaotic and harmonious. Despite the diversity of species and technologies, there was a rhythm to it, a pulse that only someone with patience and observation could feel. He adjusted the strap of his satchel, letting it rest comfortably against his side. Inside were a few essential items, tools, personal records, and a small notebook filled with observations he had recorded over the years. To anyone else, it might seem like the items were trivial, but to Elior, they represented preparedness and understanding. Humans had a way of noticing details others often overlooked, and he had long relied on that skill in moments when adaptability was more important than brute strength or authority. Zirin watched from the observation deck above the hub, maintaining a careful distance while tracking the shuttle's progress. They did not need to hide exactly, but the act of following subtly allowed them to observe without alerting Elior. Every human had a past, but few carried it with such quiet clarity. Zirin could feel the echoes of Elior's choices, small decisions, courageous acts, and thoughtful interventions that had shaped the lives of countless beings. It was not a past defined by conflict, but by perseverance, insight, and connection. The shuttle slowed as it approached the outer ring of the hub. Elior checked his surroundings, noting the docking procedure and the small crew attending the vessel. A pair of assistants, beings with crystalline forms that shimmered in the low light, moved with precision and grace. They spoke in a soft, melodic hum, guiding the shuttle into the correct berth. Elior nodded in appreciation, recognizing the smooth coordination. He had spent enough time in multi-species environments to understand that efficiency often came from subtle observation rather than commands or strict control. Once the shuttle docked, Elior stepped onto the platform. The outer ring of the hub was quieter than the central area, with fewer travelers and a slower rhythm. It was here that specialists, diplomats, and explorers often conducted their work. Away from the constant noise of the main concourse, Elior walked among them, his eyes scanning the environment for cues, for opportunities to interact or assist if needed. He had a habit of noticing things others missed. A panel emitting irregular pulses, a small being struggling with navigation, or a communication relay acting inconsistently. As he walked, he came across a young alien who was trying to operate a small transport terminal. The alien had multiple limbs, but struggled with the complex interface, its tiny voice humming in frustration. Elior knelt beside the creature and offered gentle guidance. Within moments, the alien had successfully completed its task. A small, delighted sound escaped the creature, and it bowed in gratitude. Elior smiled, feeling a quiet sense of satisfaction. He did not expect praise. Helping others was a natural extension of observation and understanding. Zirin, observing nearby, felt a warmth of recognition. Humans often acted in ways that were subtle but deeply impactful. Elior's presence was already creating small ripples in the environment, unnoticed by most, but significant to those who had the eyes to see. It was not power in the traditional sense, but influence born of thoughtfulness, empathy, and creativity. Elior continued toward the central administrative area of the outer ring. A malfunctioning guidance drone hovered in the corridor, spinning in small arcs as it struggled to function. Elior approached carefully, assessing the issue. His hands moved with precision, adjusting the drone's sensors and recalibrating its circuits. The drone stabilized immediately, resuming its patrol with smooth, fluid motion. Travelers nearby barely noticed the intervention, but the system logged the correction silently. Elior had acted instinctively, relying on a combination of knowledge and intuition. He paused for a moment near a small cafe, taking in the surroundings. Beings of many forms sat at tables, conversing in languages that vibrated, hummed, or sang. Elior observed the interactions, noting subtleties in body language and tone. These observations were not just for curiosity. They allowed him to anticipate needs, to understand patterns, and to respond thoughtfully when required. Humans had a rare skill in reading complex social dynamics, and Elior embodied it fully. A soft, melodic hum drew his attention to a terminal displaying messages from other sectors of the hub. One of the messages indicated a minor communication disruption in a nearby colony's coordination network. Elior's interest peaked. This was not a critical failure, but it could create confusion if left unattended. Without hesitation, he retrieved a small data analyzer from his satchel and approached the terminal. Within minutes, he had identified the issue and proposed adjustments to reroute signals efficiently. The network responded immediately, restoring clarity and connectivity. Zirin, following discreetly, felt admiration grow with each action Elior took. They had seen many species attempt similar interventions, but humans approached problems with a unique combination of logic, empathy, and imagination. It was never just about fixing a problem. It was about understanding the broader impact, about creating solutions that honored the environment and the beings within it. Elior's quiet effectiveness reflected a depth that few could measure, and Zirin found themselves increasingly intrigued. Elior made his way to a meeting room, a neutral space where travelers and specialists often gathered to discuss projects and initiatives. The room was filled with beings of diverse shapes and colors, each representing different worlds and areas of expertise. Elior's presence drew soft glances. Humans were rare in this sector, and a human who moved with calm confidence often inspired curiosity. He found a seat at the edge of a circular table, laying his satchel beside him. A conversation began around the room regarding coordination of transport schedules and resource allocation. Elior listened quietly, noting patterns, inconsistencies, and potential improvements. When he spoke, it was deliberate, thoughtful, and clear. Suggestions were met with nods, soft sounds of agreement, and immediate application. Elior's ability to bridge perspectives across species was subtle but effective. He did not dominate the discussion, instead, he enhanced it, creating connections that others had overlooked. During a brief pause, Elior glanced toward a small window overlooking the outer docking platforms. He noticed a young crew member struggling with a load of supplies, the assortment too cumbersome for the being's size. Without hesitation, he moved across the room and offered assistance, rearranging the items to balance the weight and ease the burden. The crew member's relief was evident, and a small, grateful sound was directed at him. Elior returned to his seat, unhurried, as if it were the most natural action in the world. Zirin observed all of this in quiet fascination. The human's past, full of hidden missions and quiet heroism, was revealed not in grand gestures or headline-grabbing feats, but in small, meaningful acts. Each choice, each intervention, each solution to a problem told a story. Zirin realized that humans often carried histories not for recognition, but for the good of others. Elior was no exception. His life had been shaped by perseverance, creativity, and empathy. After the meeting, Elior stepped outside onto a balcony overlooking the docking platforms. Ships moved silently in and out, carrying passengers and cargo across vast distances. The windless air hummed with energy, the movement of countless beings creating an invisible network of connection and purpose. Elior watched for a moment, letting the rhythm of the hub sink into him. He understood systems, networks, and flow not just in machines, but in life itself. A soft vibration at his satchel reminded him of an incoming message. He checked the device, finding a notification from an allied researcher on a distant world. The message was a request for guidance on a project involving cross-species collaboration. Elior smiled softly. This was not an urgent problem, but it offered an opportunity to assist, to connect, and to apply insight. Humans often found purpose in service, and Elior was no exception. He began drafting a response, outlining steps that would help the team coordinate more effectively. His words were precise, clear, and encouraging. Even through text, the guidance conveyed patience, understanding, and practical wisdom. Elior had learned that helping others often required not just knowledge, but empathy, foresight, and the ability to communicate clearly across differences. Zirin lingered nearby, a quiet presence in the observation deck. They reflected on the subtle power humans possessed, the ability to influence environments and beings not through dominance or aggression, but through creativity, thoughtfulness, and connection. Elior's actions that day were just small moments in a long life, but they exemplified qualities that Zirin recognized as extraordinary. As evening approached in the hub, Elior prepared to move to a quieter section where he could rest before continuing his journey. He walked along corridors illuminated by soft bioluminescent panels, passing beings engaged in their own activities. Some paused to acknowledge him. A nod or a glance, recognizing without knowing why that this human carried an unusual presence. Elior noticed nothing, focused on his path and the small details around him. Reaching a private resting area, he set down his satchel and took a seat. He reflected briefly on the day's small events, the successful repair of the network, the assistance offered to others, the connections made in the meeting room. Each moment was ordinary, yet collectively they formed a pattern of subtle impact. Elior understood that influence was often quiet, that real change was not always visible, but that small acts could ripple through systems and communities in ways that left lasting effects. From a distance, Zirin observed one final moment before retreating to their own space. The human was unaware of being watched. Yet their actions had left impressions in the minds of others and in the currents of the hub itself. Zirin understood that humans carried histories not as trophies or proofs of greatness, but as evidence of potential. Elior's potential was quietly extraordinary, a blend of resilience, empathy, and ingenuity that could shape environments and beings alike. As the hub settled into the gentle rhythm of evening, Elior closed his eyes for a brief rest. The lights of the docking platforms twinkled outside his window, reflecting patterns of movement and life. He was unaware of the depth of observation, the recognition of his past, and the quiet admiration of a being who understood history differently than most. But within that quiet there was comfort, a subtle sense that he was not alone, that the universe, in its own way, acknowledged the value of his life and choices. Elior drifted into a calm state of reflection, preparing for the next stage of his journey. The universe was vast, full of challenges and opportunities, and he moved forward with quiet confidence, guided by insight, empathy, and experience. Somewhere nearby, Zirin held knowledge of the hidden past, inspired by the human before them, and already anticipating what might come next. The day ended not with fanfare, but with gentle acknowledgement, a recognition that humans carried a quiet power in observation, connection, and ingenuity, and that Elior, in his ordinary appearance, had already begun to leave a mark on the lives around him. Elior awoke early the next day, the soft glow of the docking hub spilling into his small resting chamber. The quiet hum of ships starting their morning routines mixed with the soft calls of beings moving toward their destinations. He stretched and gathered his satchel, preparing for the next leg of his journey. Today was important, not because danger awaited, but because opportunity often came to those who observed carefully and acted thoughtfully. Humans, Elior reflected, had a rare talent for noticing details that others missed, and for turning small observations into meaningful solutions. He left the resting area and moved along the corridors toward the administrative section. The hub was already active, with beings of countless species crossing paths. Some moved quickly, their energy urgent and directed, while others drifted slowly, observing and interacting with their surroundings. Elior's human pace was steady, neither hurried nor delayed, and it allowed him to notice subtle patterns around him. He saw a young alien struggling to balance a load of containers on a wheeled carrier. Without hesitation, Elior approached and adjusted the arrangement, making it easier for the alien to move without spilling anything. A quiet sound of thanks followed, and the alien nodded gratefully before continuing. Elior smiled and continued on, unbothered by attention, yet fully aware of the impact of his action. Zirin watched from above, their luminous form blending with the shifting lights of the hub. The human's actions were small, seemingly ordinary, yet they left impressions in ways that were subtle but meaningful. Humans had a remarkable ability to influence environments not by force, but by thoughtfulness, creativity, and empathy. Elior embodied these qualities naturally. Zirin considered the human's past and how each small act had quietly shaped the lives of many. Today, Elior's presence was already creating ripples, even if he did not realize it. Elior arrived at a meeting hall in the hub, a circular room with transparent walls giving a view of ships docking and departing in the distance. Beings were gathered to discuss coordination between different sectors of the hub, especially concerning communication networks and transport logistics. Elior took a seat at one of the outer tables, careful not to dominate the space. He preferred to observe first, listening to the discussion and noting how each being contributed. Humans often approached problems differently. They considered both immediate and long-term effects, and they were naturally curious about perspectives other than their own. A young technician spoke about delays in cargo delivery. Elior listened, noting the inefficiencies in scheduling that caused the problem. When it was his turn, he suggested a minor adjustment to the transport paths and a small recalibration of the timing between docking platforms. The idea was simple, but it considered the unique characteristics of each species' abilities and needs. The room responded positively, implementing the suggestion immediately. Within minutes, the network began to stabilize. The effectiveness of Elior's observation was subtle but undeniable. During a break in the discussion, Elior stepped outside onto a balcony overlooking the docking platforms. The sun, or rather, the artificial solar light of the hub, cast gentle rays across the ships, illuminating their varied designs and colors. He noticed a pair of small maintenance drones struggling to align a cargo container for loading. Without hesitation, he moved closer and offered guidance to the drone's control interface. His precise instructions and adjustments allowed the containers to align perfectly, and the drones resumed their work with smooth, efficient movement. Travelers nearby barely noticed, but Elior's action had prevented delays that would have compounded later. Zirin, observing from a distance, felt a sense of admiration growing. Humans did not rely solely on raw power or authority. They observed, learned, and intervened in ways that improved the situation for everyone. Elior's life, full of hidden heroism, was not defined by spectacular acts, but by a consistent pattern of quiet effectiveness and thoughtful intervention. Each choice reflected the strength of patience, empathy, and ingenuity. Returning to the meeting room, Elior noticed a young alien struggling with a complicated interface that controlled the flow of messages between sectors. The being's multiple arms moved in confusion as it tried to coordinate schedules. Elior stepped forward, offering calm guidance and demonstrating a sequence of steps that simplified the process. The young alien's eyes widened in understanding, and a melodic sound of thanks echoed in the room. Elior returned to his seat with the ease of someone who acted naturally, not seeking recognition, but focused on the outcome. As the discussion progressed, Elior's understanding of the hub's complex systems became evident. He suggested a method to improve cross-species communication, allowing each species' unique abilities to complement the others. The proposal was adopted, and the room quickly adjusted its workflow. Elior's interventions were subtle, yet they encouraged collaboration and efficiency. The other beings, though not fully aware of the reasoning behind his suggestions, felt the benefits immediately. Zirin stepped closer to the observation window, fascinated. Humans had a way of seeing potential where others saw limitations. Elior's approach was neither boastful nor domineering. He simply noticed, acted thoughtfully, and created solutions that honored the needs of all involved. Zirin understood that this human carried not just skills, but a mindset that was rare in the galaxy. It was a mindset that valued connection, understanding, and the improvement of systems and relationships over recognition or fame. After the meeting concluded, Elior walked toward a quieter section of the hub, a place where travelers often paused to rest, reflect, or exchange information. He noticed a small, childlike alien struggling to reach a floating guide panel. Elior adjusted it carefully, making it accessible. The alien's bright, expressive eyes met his, and a soft sound of gratitude followed. Elior nodded, understanding that the impact of his actions often extended far beyond the immediate moment. He continued through the corridors, observing interactions and noting subtle inefficiencies in various systems. His mind worked naturally, considering ways to improve flow, communication, and understanding between species. Humans had a unique way of perceiving patterns, and Elior's life experience had honed this ability. Zirin had never seen another being approach life in such a consistently thoughtful and empathetic manner. As the day progressed, Elior reached the central observation deck, a place where strategic decisions regarding hub operations were often made. Several beings were reviewing transport schedules, noting minor delays and irregularities. Elior offered insight, suggesting slight adjustments that optimized efficiency while accommodating the strengths and limitations of various species. His suggestions were simple, practical, and effective. Within minutes, the deck's operations improved noticeably. Zirin felt a deep appreciation for the human before them. Elior's life had been marked by quiet heroism, and now it was manifesting again in small but meaningful interventions. Each action revealed the depth of human capability, the ability to influence environments positively through observation, understanding, and thoughtful action. Elior's past missions, though hidden, had shaped this capability, preparing him for moments such as this. In the evening, Elior moved to a small observation platform overlooking the outer docking bays. The soft glow of docking lights reflected off the smooth surfaces of the vessels. He paused, taking in the view and reflecting on the day's interactions. Every small problem he had addressed, every being he had assisted, had a subtle effect on the environment. Humans had a talent for creating impact without seeking acknowledgement, and Elior had mastered it naturally. Zirin remained in the shadows, observing quietly. They considered the humans' past, the hidden missions and challenges that had shaped him. These experiences had given Elior insight, patience, and creativity, qualities that now allowed him to guide, assist, and influence without exerting force. Zirin realized that humans carried histories not as trophies, but as tools for positive impact. Elior exemplified this truth. A gentle vibration from Elior's satchel reminded him of a message. It was from an associate on a nearby colony, requesting advice on organizing a multi-species initiative. Elior smiled softly, appreciating the opportunity to assist. He drafted a careful, clear response, offering guidance that would enable the team to coordinate efficiently. His words conveyed not just information, but encouragement and understanding, allowing others to act with confidence and clarity. As night fell in the hub, Elior walked along quiet corridors, noting the soft glow of bioluminescent panels. Travelers passed by, some pausing to acknowledge him with subtle gestures. Elior did not notice or seek recognition. His focus remained on observation, understanding, and creating subtle improvements wherever possible. He returned to his resting area, placing his satchel beside him and reflecting on the day. Small acts, small solutions, and thoughtful interventions had quietly shaped the environment and the beings around him. Humans often carried power in subtle forms, and Elior's life demonstrated this in every action. He understood the ripple effect of thoughtful behavior, and he moved with purpose, not seeking reward, but aiming to improve the flow of life for all. Zirin observed one final moment before retreating to their own quarters. They had followed Elior through the day, witnessing the quiet mastery of observation, connection, and ingenuity. The human had a hidden past full of challenges and accomplishments, and now it was evident in the present. Elior's life was a reminder that extraordinary capability could exist in ordinary appearance, and that influence and heroism often manifested in ways invisible to most. As Elior closed his eyes for the night, he reflected on the patterns of the hub, the interactions he had influenced, and the connections he had facilitated. There was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that observation, empathy, and thoughtful action could create meaningful change. Somewhere nearby, Zirin held knowledge of the human's hidden past and recognized the potential within him. Elior slept peacefully, unaware of the admiration and understanding that had quietly followed him all day. The stars outside twinkled softly through the observation window, their light reflecting patterns of movement and connection. Elior's presence had already left a mark on the hub, subtle but significant, and Zirin understood that humans were capable of leaving ripples in the galaxy far beyond what others could perceive. The quiet power of thoughtfulness, patience, and insight was evident in every action Elior had taken that day. Elior's journey was far from over. The galaxy held many challenges, opportunities, and discoveries, and humans had a rare ability to navigate them through observation, creativity, and connection. Zirin knew that future interactions would reveal even more of the human's hidden capabilities, and that the story of Elior was only beginning to unfold. The night deepened, and the hub settled into calm rhythms. Elior rested, preparing for the next stage of his journey. The universe, full of potential and life, acknowledged his quiet presence in ways unseen, and somewhere nearby, a being who understood history differently held admiration and anticipation for what was yet to come. The morning light filtered through the observation window, casting a warm glow over the docking platforms. Elior rose from his resting area, stretching and adjusting his satchel. Today, he had a purpose. Not a mission of danger, not a task of confrontation, but a chance to connect, to contribute, and to observe in ways that only humans seemed naturally able to do. Humans had a gift for turning ordinary moments into opportunities for understanding, cooperation, and insight. Elior carried that gift quietly, but powerfully. He moved through the outer ring of the hub, noticing details as he went. A maintenance drone struggled to align a package with the loading dock. Elior approached, analyzing the drone's systems and the timing of the platform. Within moments, he adjusted the programming slightly, allowing the drone to complete its task efficiently. The drone's lights pulsed in a soft pattern, signaling success. Travelers nearby hardly noticed, yet the ripple of improved efficiency would extend through the hub's schedules and operations. Elior smiled, accustomed to the subtle satisfaction of small victories. Zirin observed from a balcony above, their luminous form blending with the morning light. They had been following Elior for days, silently witnessing the human's quiet impact. Each action was ordinary in appearance but extraordinary in effect. Humans had a way of connecting with systems, beings, and situations that others rarely understood. Zirin considered how Elior's hidden past had shaped him. Missions where courage was shown without recognition, decisions made in isolation that influenced countless lives. Now, in this peaceful hub, those same skills manifested as insight, empathy, and subtle leadership. Elior arrived at the Central Coordination Hall. Representatives of multiple species were gathered, discussing ways to improve interstellar communication and transport. The room was a blend of forms, colors, and sounds, yet Elior approached it with a calm certainty. He listened first, noticing patterns, inconsistencies, and potential improvements. Humans often approached problems holistically, considering not only the technical issues, but also the needs, capabilities, and tendencies of all involved. Elior's insight allowed him to see solutions that others overlooked. When it was his turn to speak, he suggested minor adjustments to the scheduling and routing systems, taking into account the unique abilities of each species. His words were clear, deliberate, and encouraging. The representatives nodded, implementing the changes without hesitation. The room's efficiency improved immediately, a quiet testament to the human's observational skills and understanding. Elior did not seek recognition. His satisfaction came from knowing that systems worked better, that cooperation had increased, and that the ripple effect would continue. After the meeting, Elior walked toward the observation platform overlooking the docking bays. Ships moved in and out with precision, cargo and passengers flowing smoothly. He noticed a young crew member struggling to manage a load of containers. Without hesitation, he offered guidance, adjusting the arrangement to balance the weight and ease the burden. The crew member's relief was clear, and a soft sound of gratitude followed. Elior returned to the platform, noting the subtle ways small actions could improve overall flow and harmony. Zirin watched intently. The human's past was full of hidden acts of quiet heroism, and now that same spirit manifested in daily interactions. Elior's effectiveness was not in grand displays, but in the accumulation of thoughtful actions. Zirin recognized a fundamental truth about humans. They influence the world not through force, but through observation, insight, and empathy. Elior embodied this truth in every gesture, every choice, and every solution he offered. As he continued along the corridors, Elior came across a small group of aliens struggling to access a data terminal. The interface was complex, designed to accommodate multiple species at once, yet it presented challenges for those unfamiliar with it. Elior stepped forward, guiding the group through the process patiently and clearly. Within minutes, the terminal was functioning smoothly, and the aliens were able to continue their work without frustration. Elior moved on quietly, his satisfaction rooted in the ease he had brought to others. He reached a quiet balcony that overlooked the central hub. The morning sun, or artificial light designed to mimic a sun, illuminated the activity below. Elior paused, observing the patterns of movement, communication, and cooperation among the many species. He reflected on how humans had always been able to notice patterns, connect seemingly unrelated elements, and act in ways that brought improvement and harmony. His mind naturally saw connections, solutions, and potential, making small but meaningful changes wherever he went. Zirin descended from their observation post, their presence almost ethereal as they approached the balcony. They did not speak immediately, allowing Elior to continue his quiet reflection. Humans often did not realize how much their presence could inspire or guide others. Yet Elior's natural tendencies left impressions wherever he went. Zirin admired this deeply, understanding the unique qualities of humanity: empathy, creativity, patience, and the ability to influence without seeking reward. Finally, Zirin spoke. "You have done much, more than most could imagine," they said gently. Elior turned, surprised but not alarmed. The alien's luminous eyes reflected curiosity and understanding rather than judgment or scrutiny. Elior considered their words carefully. Humans rarely sought recognition for their contributions, yet acknowledgement from someone who truly understood was meaningful. "You have watched me," Elior said, his voice calm, "and you know things about me I have not shared." Zirin nodded. "I have seen your past, the choices you made, the actions you took when no one was watching. It has shaped you, and it has shaped the lives of many others. You carry your history not as a burden, but as a gift." Elior reflected on this, feeling a quiet pride. His past had been hidden for safety, for discretion, and for the greater good. Yet now, in the presence of one who understood, it felt less like a secret and more like a foundation. Zirin's words reminded him that humans had the capacity to inspire, guide, and improve without needing recognition. His hidden history was a story of quiet heroism, and now it could be acknowledged without fanfare. Together, Elior and Zirin moved along the balcony, observing the hub below. Elior noticed small inefficiencies in scheduling, patterns in communication, and ways to improve cooperation among the various species. He suggested subtle adjustments to Zirin, who listened with interest. The alien's perspective complemented his own, and their combined insight created solutions that neither could have achieved alone. Humans had a remarkable way of collaborating, understanding, and connecting ideas, and Elior demonstrated this naturally. Throughout the day, Elior continued to move through the hub, offering guidance, observation, and solutions wherever needed. He helped a young alien understand a complex transport schedule, advised a group on the most efficient way to distribute resources, and assisted in optimizing communication networks. Each action was small, yet collectively they improved the flow of life in the hub. Zirin observed silently, taking note of the human's subtle impact on the environment and the beings within it. In the late afternoon, Elior reached a small garden space within the hub. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly, and small water streams reflected light across the surfaces. Travelers paused to rest here, enjoying a moment of calm. Elior sat on a bench, observing the scene and considering the broader implications of his day's work. Humans had a rare ability to see systems, relationships, and patterns simultaneously, and Elior had applied that ability naturally and thoughtfully. Zirin joined him quietly. "You have influenced more than you know," they said. "Your actions, though subtle, have shaped the hub in ways that will last beyond today." Elior nodded, understanding the truth of their words. Humans rarely needed recognition to act effectively, but the acknowledgement from someone who truly understood carried weight. It was a reminder that quiet heroism, empathy, and thoughtfulness could leave lasting impressions. Elior reflected on his hidden past, the missions and challenges that had shaped him, and the choices he had made without seeking credit. Those experiences had honed his ability to observe, analyze, and act with clarity and compassion. Zirin's acknowledgement transformed his past from a quiet memory into a source of strength and inspiration. Humans had a way of influencing not just immediate circumstances, but the lives of countless others through thoughtful action, and Elior now fully understood the significance of that ability. As evening approached, Elior and Zirin moved toward the central observation deck one final time. Ships moved steadily, communication networks flowed without error, and travelers of many species interacted with ease. The hub was alive with quiet energy, a testament to coordination, understanding, and care. Elior noted how small interventions created large ripple effects. The human capacity to perceive patterns and implement thoughtful solutions had subtly improved the environment for everyone. Zirin spoke once more. You carry history, insight, and the ability to influence the lives of others. Few species possess your combination of qualities. You remind me that humans are extraordinary, not because they dominate, but because they connect, understand, and improve wherever they are. Elior smiled softly. Recognition was not what he sought, yet he felt warmth in their words. Humans often found satisfaction in effectiveness rather than acclaim, and now that effectiveness was understood by another being who could appreciate it fully. The day drew to a close, and Elior returned to his resting area. He placed his satchel beside him and looked out the window at the glowing docking platforms. Ships arrived and departed in steady rhythm, and the hub continued to thrive. The human had left a quiet, meaningful impact, and Zirin's observation confirmed what Elior had always sensed, that humans had a unique ability to shape life positively, not through force or recognition, but through insight, empathy, and thoughtful action. Elior closed his eyes, reflecting on the journey. The universe was vast, filled with complexity, diversity, and opportunity. Humans had the capacity to navigate it with creativity, patience, and understanding. Zirin, standing nearby, held knowledge of the human's hidden past and recognized the quiet heroism that defined him. Elior's life was proof that influence, compassion, and observation could leave a lasting mark on the galaxy. As the lights of the hub dimmed for the night, Elior drifted into peaceful rest. The stars outside shimmered softly, reflecting the intricate patterns of life below. Somewhere nearby, Zirin remained in silent acknowledgement, inspired by the human before them. Elior's story was a reminder that quiet, thoughtful actions could ripple outward, shaping worlds and lives in ways that no one could fully measure. The universe had witnessed Elior's presence, and in subtle, enduring ways, it had been changed. Humans, Zirin realized, were extraordinary, not through power or aggression, but through resilience, observation, and the ability to leave lasting positive influence wherever they traveled. Elior's journey, from hidden heroism to recognized impact, had come full circle. The galaxy, vast and complex, held infinite possibilities, and humans had the rare ability to navigate it with insight, empathy, and quiet strength. The hub settled into the gentle rhythm of night, travelers resting, systems functioning smoothly, and small acts of care continuing unnoticed. Elior slept, unaware of the admiration and understanding quietly surrounding him. Zirin, watching, understood that this human had touched the lives of many, not through spectacle, but through thoughtfulness, connection, and the hidden power of a life lived with awareness and compassion. And in that quiet, peaceful moment, both human and alien understood a simple truth. Greatness was not always visible, but it could be known, felt, and remembered through the subtle, meaningful impacts left behind. Elior's hidden past, once a secret, had become a source of inspiration, a foundation for the quiet heroism that continued to shape the galaxy in ways both seen and unseen.